It seems to me that if the crypto itself is going to go up, well, the industry is going to go up, but it's safer to be part of the industry than it is to be actually part of the commodity.
So I kind of wanted to just kind of get your perspective on the industry and what you know about it, and what it is. If you have any questions.
So, well, I've got a ton of questions. Real quick, I'll tell you my Bitcoin story. Everybody has one.
Yes.
A friend of mine says you got to buy this stuff Bitcoin. It's unbelievable. I think when I bought it, it was about $12,000 a Bitcoin. So I buy it. It proceeds to hang around there, and it goes down to $3,000. Mm-hmm. I said, what the hell kind of investment is this? This is the worst. It comes back to about $7,000, $8,000. And I said, I'm out. So I sold and lost. I think I had 3 of them, maybe. So, what, $18,000, maybe $20,000 I lost on Bitcoin. Well, then I see it go, skyrocket. What is it? 50 something thousand now, 40 something thousand?
I went down. So it's around 42 right now.
42,000. So, I'm thinking, oh my God, if I own those Bitcoins, but here's where I'm honest with myself. If I had bought that Bitcoin at $12,000 and it gets to $24,000, I'm out so fast that there's no way I'm holding. And if it got to 30, I'm definitely out. So when it was at 65, there's no way I still would have been in it anyway. So that's my Bitcoin story.
I always get that question. It's like, how did you just hold through those jumps? And I'm like, it was so fast. I was like, if it went up that fast, it can go up even more. That was just like my rationale at the time.
Well, I was on vacation. I didn't know it went down.
In the beginning, it's very hard to step away from it because it's so emotional, right? You get sucked in emotionally. And that was just for me, I had this whole journey of having to become aware of that roller coaster and seeing how I would react based on the emotion. So yeah, so you kind of have to ride it to kind of see why it fluctuates the way it does.
Yeah. When I told my story, I had a quick little story I skipped. Before I went to work for the construction company, I went to work for AIG as a floor trader on the commodities exchange, back on the old commodity exchange where they yell and scream at each other, and didn't do very well at it. My personality wasn't suited for it. My personality was suited great for elbowing around in the pits, but it wasn't good for taking losses on after I bought something and watching it disappear in a matter of seconds. I'm very risk averse, which is why I call myself a small-time capitalist. I'd rather buy an oil change business that's been in business for 10 years. It's got a history of making money. I know I can buy it. I do a couple little things. I can increase revenue a little bit. I hold it for 5 or 6 years. I can turn around and maybe make $1 million on it, right? Buy the property with it. So that's not a risky play. By the way, you've got a company that has 10-year history of making money. There's no risk in that.
Yeah,
might feel like risk. I liquidated my 401k. I put everything I own into my oil change business. That feels risky, but it's got a history there. No big deal. This stuff scares me, but I'm also a poker player. I'm a gambler, so I take a little bit that I can risk, and I'm willing to kind of let it ride on some stuff.
Yeah, I tell people this. The risk is there right now, mainly because we're in the beginning phases of it. But the actual practical, the way that it's built, the protocol itself, the structures, obviously it depends on the project itself, but the way that blockchain functions, it's actually the most zero risk investment you'll ever make because of those variables, those intrinsic value that comes.
So to me, tell me if I'm off base here. When I look at crypto, if I was to venture in to try to make money off of crypto, I would want to get in on making money off the business of crypto, whether it's the back end, whether it's some kind of product to help people transact it, whether it somehow the industry of crypto is where I'd rather go in to make money than actually buying the crypto itself. It seems to me that if the crypto itself is going to go up, well, the industry is going to go up, but it's safer to be part of the industry than it is to be actually part of the commodity.
So that's such an interesting perspective, because that's a very business way of looking at it. I 100% agree. And I would even argue that the majority of the people that are in it now that are creating, that's what they're doing. They're essentially just focusing on the engines, right? Like the back end engines that are going to support everything. And then if eventually other people will come in and build on top of those engines, right? So yeah, right now we're in the engine phase. This NFT craze that happened, we know with artwork, that was, I believe, the first moment where mainstream came in and started building on top of those engines. And so that's a tiny little bubble, right? That artwork stuff that's happening with the NFTs, that's a tiny little bubble. Even the trading aspect as well of crypto is also it's like a old way of doing business. Like it's an old way of looking at crypto. Here's why I say this. These tokens, these projects, they create these tokens. That token is the project. That's the difference. When you buy stock or commodity, you're buying something that is, you're like, for stocks, for example, stocks is a security. So it represents that company. So the company, depending on what it does, what it decides, what the profits are, all that stuff is going to bring value to the stock, right? Commodities, usually it's dependent on the companies that are out there mining and doing all that work. And then that kind of fluctuates the market. And then there's a whole another level of manipulation there too. But the majority of it comes from the companies that are doing the work on that thing. With crypto, the tokens are the actual project itself. And so nobody owns that project. Okay. No individual entity or group of people actually own the project. Everyone that owns the token owns the project, and it's self-governing, right? So it's this protocol. It's this thing that just executes. It just does the math. It just does the protocol. So nobody can come in and change it and make changes to it or increase it or lower it or do any kind of manipulation. So with all that said, why did I say that? It's because the concept of trading, that's old. We traded before because we had to, we had to kind of like come up with why the specific stock is going to go up or down based on their decisions. With the protocols, you don't have to guess. It's a fact because the math is there. So that's the big difference there. There's math that can't be changed, and the other one is people that manipulate.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, all of it. I mean, and then I think this is why people start to get confused over it as well.
Yes. and I have a hard time myself in coming up with the analogies to break it down enough to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh, it makes sense. Don't you get it? And it's like, no.